Well, we're starting a new project today. I'm working on our 64 Corvette, and it's been feeling a little twitchy driving down the road, like the back end has an issue. And I jacked it up, and the rear differential has two little stub axles in it, and they wear out. And sure enough, on one side, I've got quite a bit of play. So today, I'm going to start pulling the rear suspension off, and we're going to pull the rear differential out, and then we'll take a look at the stub axles and see how much end play we have in them. So I got her up in the air, got her up on jack stands, and I'm using some hydraulic jacks just as safeties, but got it blocked up real good. Let's take a look and see what we got. So we're going to be heading back into here. I think my problem is this stub axle right there. So to get that out, we're going to drop the rear differential. And I know a pro can probably do this, probably just pull this cross member and drop the whole thing. I'm probably going to just do it piecemeal. I'll probably take the spare tire tub out, give me some room, pull the leaf spring, and pull the half shafts, and then just kind of dig it out from there. I know I've got 4 bolts up top I'm going to have to reach up and get, and that should drop the differential. And of course I got these strut rods. Where the heck are they? These strut rods right there that I'll have to mark, because that sets the suspension, and then I'll pull those, and that'll get me at the rear differential. So I think for starters I'm going to go pull the spare tire carrier. So there's the spare tire carrier out, and that one was a pretty easy job, and that gives us a lot more room back there. Easier to get at the bolts we need to get at. So now I think we'll probably start working on the half shafts, get those loose, and probably have to pull, like I say, the radius rods, get those loose, and then we'll try to get the half shafts out of there. So I got both left and right half shafts out, and those just bolt in on this side with bolts, and then those straps lock the bolts in, and then it's just your standard straps on the inboard side by the rear axle. So I did not have to loosen the radius rods. I thought I might have to pull the trailing arms out to get these to come out, but they came right out, so no problem there. And so now, okay, so now let's take a look at the differential. We've got the half shafts out. Obviously they would have gone right there and right there, and would have just attached into the spindles there. So here's the problem I've got. These little stub axles are supposed to have an end play, a max end play of about 20 thousandths is the max. I'm going to try to get my light to stay. So 20 thousandths is very light, and I'm pulling this one in and out. You can hear it, but it's barely moving. And I'll come over to the other side. And again, try to get some light on it. And again, spec is 20 thou. Whoa! That is way more than 20 thou. So this little stub axle is worn out. So I'm going to have to pull the whole thing and go through it. Well, I've had a change of plan. I was starting to pull the front diff mount out, and the whole differential seems like it wants to twist a little bit. And I think that's because I still got the leaf spring attached. So we're going to go ahead and take these castle nuts out, jack the leaf spring up a little bit, take the load off, and then lower the leaf spring down on each side. And hopefully that'll take the twisting out, and we'll be able to get the front mount out. So I've got the leaf spring disconnected from the trailing arms on both sides. So now I figure just while I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and just disconnect it from the differential. It's just hanging there. And it's pretty easy, just 4 bolts. So I'll hit that, take the mounting plate out and drop it. It'll just be out of the way. Then we'll go back and poke around on the front mount a little bit more. So there we've got the mounting plate off. And we've got the leaf spring loose. And I'm guessing there's probably not enough room to roll it out, so I'm probably going to have to take one side of the exhaust off to get that out of there, because we want to take the differential straight down. So we'll take a look at that, maybe take one muffler off and loosen a pipe a little bit, see if we can wiggle that guy out of there. Well, having a little trouble dropping the leaf spring with the exhaust, so we're going to go ahead and take these mufflers out, and that should buy us a little wiggle room. And maybe we will have to drop the front of the pipes a little bit, but it's snug, but we're close. So we'll pull the mufflers and we'll see what happens. I love it when things work out. Got the leaf spring out. What I did, let me get my light. I took the exhaust tips out and then unbolted the muffler from the hanger, and that bought me a little bit of wiggle room. And with that wiggle room on both mufflers, the spring dropped enough I could rotate it and slide it out. So we now have that out. So that means I can start working on pulling the bracket that holds the strut rods in, or the front mount. So those are our last pieces before we drop the diff. I do need to mark these. They have eccentric bolts, and that sets suspension alignment. So I'll mark those so I know how to put them back in, and then we'll start taking that apart. So I've marked these bolts so I know how to put them back in for the same alignment. Did that on both sides. And something interesting I'd forgotten, it's been a while since I've had a diff out of one of these things. When you go to pull the front bracket, there's front bolts and there's rear bolts. Pull the front bolts. Forgive me if I can't get this up in there. And, doggone it, sorry. Leave the bracket on the long bolt. See how it just kind of hangs here? And now I can get at the drive shaft. See it up there? I can get at the drive shaft now. But I can't get that long bolt out because on the other side it hits the floor pan. So before I put this back in, I've got to put the bracket on the diff and put that long bolt in. Might be able to see that here. I'll try to pull it out. If I pull that all the way over, it hits the floor. So that's got to be in the diff with the bracket on before you raise the diff up and bolt it, or you're not going to get that bolt in. So that's more of a reminder to myself. But so I've got this front diff mount done. So now I'm going to pull the strut rod bracket, just 4 bolts, and loosen the eccentrics, and we'll drop that out. So now I've got the strut rod bracket out, and as you can see, it has an offset fastener. So just to make it easier before you put it back in, this side is the front, goes towards the front, and where it goes straight across the bottom, that goes to the rear. Both of these eccentrics I could not pull out because they would hit the floor pan. So when I go to reinstall this, I'm going to let it hang low, put these bolts through and through the radius rods with it all hanging low. Then when I push it up, then these will be blocked, but that way I can get them in. And there are some washer pieces that need to go in as you're putting on the radius rods, and I think I taped them on last time and they held on just fine. So anyway, just a couple things to remember when I go to put this back together. So we've got everything off now except the diff itself. Strut rods are just hanging, diff brackets hanging, got the drive shaft disconnected, half shafts are off. So now the fun part is these 4 mounting bolts. So I got to reach up into that cross member. There's 2 pockets, and by feel I get to unbolt them, and that'll be a whole lot easier than getting them started again. Smarter people would take this whole cross member off, but I'm not known for being smart. So I've done this before. It's not that hard. It just saves me from dropping that whole cross member. So we will start working on those 4 bolts, and with that, the diff should just come down. I'll put a jack underneath it, obviously. So I'm going to get underneath there and start working on those. It was a slow go getting those 4 bolts out, but we got them, and the differential's out. So we've got that on the jack stand. So now we'll have to take it to the shop, have them go through it. This is what we're talking about. This is normal end play. 20 thou's the limit. And look at this. So this one's got some problems. Either the snap ring came off or it's worn, but either way, it needs work. So with that, we will get this loaded up and get her to the rear end shop.